Yes. So let us do a quick recap, like what we have discussed yesterday and then day before yesterday. So day before yesterday and yesterday, we have spent completely in understanding the course content, right? So what extent the course content will be covered and what outcome that we will get out of this course content. So those things we have discussed yesterday and then day before yesterday. As part of it, just in a nutshell, to recall what we're gonna achieve here, right? So first we're gonna implement the monolithic application with all the modules inside a single var file or jar file. And then later in time, we will migrate this to the microservices architecture, where each and every module is an independently executable and autonomous application. And later, to manage these microservices, we need the cloud, Spring Cloud components and other components. Then we thought to use the Spring Cloud components along with the other third-party components, right? So to make it as a production grade application. So that's what we have discussed yesterday and then day before yesterday. And also I have shown you the course content, like how we will use that course content to develop these applications. Like, so exact view we have to implement, exact view, like, using the course content, what I have shared, exact view we have to implement here like this. So we will use the time leaf for this one, and the design HTML designs were already with me. So we have to use the HTML designs and time leaf together to implement this application. However, this course content I have been not given to our backend admin team because I'm still adding more things. Time leaf is not added, so I have to add time leaf. So probably today I will hand over so that you can see this course content from today onwards in the DURGASOFT website. Okay, so whatever the course content given there, right, that is not the complete course content, it's a partial course content. And of course, that will be completely override with the course content what I'm going to share today. Right, and then microservices course content we have discussed, the honeycomb analogy that we will use to understand the microservices architecture, and many things we have discussed yesterday, meaning how the course is going to be on microservices is what we have discussed. Like, React.js integration and deploying the microservices into the AWS, Dockerizing the microservices, right? CQRS, event sourcing, Auxiliary framework, lot of things which I have been mentioned in my banner. The same concepts I have mentioned here as well to accomplish them. So Docker and all we will discuss. Then we will use the Spring Cloud concepts like config server, registry, API gateway, right? Resilience 4J. So all these Spring Cloud components also we will use, like observability, resilience. So a lot of concepts we're going to use from this Spring Cloud as well to finally make our architecture, our production grade architecture as this one. So our production grade architecture is this one, and our production targeted production will be in the AWS cloud. So by the completion of this course, we will be good enough to implement the application using this architecture, and will be able to deploy in the AWS cloud with the Kubernetes, not Kubernetes, sorry, with the Docker. With the Docker, we will be able to deploy the entire application into the meaning microservices into the AWS cloud. Okay, so that is the agenda. Again, I'm telling you folks, course duration is 90 days. Prerequisite is Spring Core, and of course Advanced Java, and then CoreJava 1.8, Java 1.8, Spring Core, and then the Servlets and JSP, of course, as part of Advanced Java that will come. If any one of you don't know the Spring Core, right, don't worry. From the beginning of the Spring Core, I will start here, and then to the moderate level and then expert level will slowly grow. However, as we have completed the course content discussion, And we have completed the enough discussions around why you have to opt for this Spring Boot microservices course, right? So as we have done the enough discussions and 3 demos we were done, and today onwards let us start our original our actual content. So our actual content, let us start today. So actual content is what? Actually Spring Core content I will prepare. I will show again Spring Core content also tomorrow. So actual content will start, right? What is Spring Boot and all, we're gonna start, right? So before this, let us understand first what is Spring Framework. I know many of you folks know about this Spring. You already have completed your Spring Framework and all, many of you folks, but just bear with me and then listen. Definitely you will get the new points during this discussion for sure. Okay, so let us go and then start our concepts, actual concepts from today onwards. That's how I given session 1. What is Spring? Right. So what is the agenda? So agenda of today is, let's understand first what is Spring Framework. So what is Spring Framework? That is the agenda. And during this, we will understand what is framework, right? And then we will understand technology versus framework. So if I can say it as like a tool versus a framework, I can say, or a technology versus framework, right? A technology versus framework versus tool. So this discussion we will do. And next we will understand what is enterprise edition. What is enterprise edition? Next we will understand timelines of enterprise edition. Next we will understand enterprise edition versus Spring. So this is the target agenda for today's discussion. Okay, so this is the agenda. Fine. So let us go to the next window and then start understanding what is Spring Framework. I know most of you members know about the Spring Framework. You already have done the courses somewhere else, but please bear with me. For sure, you will get a good points, meaning a new points at least. 1 or 2 new points you will get. Apart from the Spring, what you know, you definitely get one or more new points during this discussion. Okay, so what is Spring Framework? So Spring Framework is a most powerful, flexible and easy to use. Spring Framework is a most powerful, flexible and easy to use. Spring Framework is a most powerful, flexible and easy to use to build the Java based enterprise applications. Right. So what is Spring Framework? Spring Framework is a most powerful, flexible and easy to use to build the Java based enterprise web applications. Okay, here few new words you got maybe. What is framework? What is the enterprise web application? Right, these are the 2 new words we got. Okay, so what is framework? So framework is nothing but a semi-finished application. So framework is said to be a semi-finished application. That can be used according to as per our requirement. That can be used as per our requirement and can be customizable So that is what the framework, and can also be customizable. So that is what the framework. So what does it mean, sir? Framework is said to be semi-finished application. What does it mean? What does it mean is half of the job is already done by the framework. For example, if you would like to implement the login functionality, just imagine. For example, if you would like to implement the login mechanism. So without framework, what we have to do, without framework, what we have to do, without framework, we have to create the user object, the user class we have to create, right? Which will contain the username, first name, last name. So let's say which contains the first name, last name, email, mobile, right? Password. Assume these we have. So this class we need to write. Okay, we will write, however, and then we need to write, role. So we need to write role. For example, role name, role ID, and then the role description. So these we need to write. And then we need to write what? Permissions. We need to write permissions. So meaning permissions. What is the permission ID and what is the permission name, right? So not role name, we have to write a permission name, right? And also we have to associate the role permission and then the user. So we have to associate permissions and then role and then user. So we have to write all these logics, right? We have to write all these logics: username, role, permissions, all these logics we need to write. If you would like write a simple security, these are all the classes we need to write. And not only these are all the classes we need to write, but also we need to write about, session management, right? We need to also concentrate on session management. What is session management? Once the user has been logged in, we will get the session ID, right? So that session ID we need to maintain. That means every request which is coming to a web application having a valid session or not. So that session management we need to write. So we need to maintain, we need to manage the sessions. We need to manage the logged in sessions, logged in user session for every request. So this is what the session management. Of course, you just forget about the theory what I'm writing. Just remember about these words: session management, roles, permissions, user management. All these things we have to write, right? This is all the things we have to write. Coding, Java classes we need to write, right? And then database, in the database we need to persist them, right? And then we need to manage the sessions as well. Assume rather than writing all these things, if someone will already provides all these things for us, where we can simply use it, right? If someone is already written a code and then he is providing all these things to us, just we need to use it, right? Then how much effort we can reduce, right? We can reduce a lot of effort. Rather focusing again on this login functionality, if someone is already giving the login functionality to us, we can use that already available login functionality. Rather than again we are writing the code, we are managing the sessions, we are managing the associations like permissions, role and user. If already someone have been developed it and then giving to us, then we can happily use it, right? We can save our time. So such thing is what, framework. The guy who is already developing this and then giving to us is called what, framework. Meaning framework is half finished, semi-finished. 50% of our job is taken care by the framework itself. Then what we have to do? We have to use that 50% of the job what the framework has been done as per our requirement, as per our need. We need to customize it. So that is the reason framework is said to be a semi-finished application that can be used as per our requirement, and it can also be customizable. So framework is said to be a semi-finished application, meaning half of the job already it is doing. For example, login functionality we have seen. So all the login functionality that it is already readily available, it is given to us. We just need to use it, right? How we have to use according to our requirement, that's up to us. How extent we can use is up to us. But already the framework is giving that login functionality, right? Meaning framework is said to be a semi-finished application, which is already providing the things whatever we want. We just need to use them according to our requirement. So one such framework is the Spring is, meaning Spring is a most powerful, flexible, easy to use framework to build the Java based enterprise web applications. Sir, you said framework, we understood. Framework is a semi-finished application, meaning framework is giving the readily available tools or readily available integrations it is giving us. What does it mean, sir? What does it mean is, no matter what we are developing, assume we are developing a web application. Assume we are developing a web application, or we are developing a RESTful API. We are developing a RESTful API for the mobile application. Right? So assume we are developing a web application, or we are developing a RESTful API for the mobile application, or we are developing a data streaming, like video streaming, audio streaming. We are developing or we need to have the data streaming flow in our application. Data streaming flow for a complex web application, we require the data streaming flow. For assume we are developing an application, a web application, and also we are developing a RESTful APIs for the mobile application, and we also require the data streaming, video streaming, audio streaming. These requirements we have for our web application, right? So if this is the case, right, so for all these things, for all the above requirements, Spring is providing supporting tools. You got now, right? For all these data streaming flows, RESTful API, web applications, for all these things, Spring is already providing the supporting tools. That is the reason Spring is said to be a semi-finished application. We can customize according to our requirement if needed, and we need to carefully use it, and we need to customize it, right? So that is the reason Spring is said to be a framework, meaning no matter what application we are developing, web application, RESTful API, data streaming flow, no matter what we are developing, but all the supporting tools is already given by the Spring framework. That means the Spring framework has already been developed with the supporting tools for most of our real-time business use cases. We can say Spring framework is the Spring is a framework, right? As the Spring is already giving the supporting tools for most of our business requirements in real time, then we can say Spring as a framework, that is semi-finished application. Now probably you got what is framework, right? So what is framework, you might now understood. So Spring is a framework, meaning Spring is already providing the business requirements related supporting tools with it, just we need to use it. So that is the reason Spring is said to be a framework, and this is most powerful and flexible, and we can easily use to build the Java based enterprise web applications here. Again, we need to discuss about what is enterprise web application, right? So maybe framework. Yes, so framework discussion we have done, and now let us see what is this web application. So what is the enterprise web application? What is the enterprise web application? So let us try to understand the meaning of enterprise web application with some simple use case. Okay, assume the use case is What is the use case? Use case meaning the outcome or the implementation what we have to do, in meaning the requirement what my application should have is nothing but a use case. So let us see one use case. One use case is I have a assume e-commerce application. Or else let us simply understand I have a hospital. just assume I have a hospital, right? I have a hospital, and every patient, every patient, every patient in my hospital, in my hospital can use a mobile application, a mobile application or a web application, can use a mobile application or web application. What is web application, sir? If the application can be accessed through the web, then that is a web application. If the application is accessed through the mobile, meaning Play Store will download and then use it, right? Those are called as a mobile applications. In simple, if the application to use, if you use the Chrome browser or Mozilla browser, whatever the browsers are the clients you are using, right? So that is a web application. Or if you go to Play Store and then download something, that is called as a mobile application, right? Of course, I'm just using this simple terminology to make you to understand, but there is a lot in the behind scene. However, I have a hospital. Every patient in my hospital can use mobile application or web application and register there. And register there. Now, understood very carefully. Register there. Understood very carefully. Earlier, how the applications were is, earlier how the applications were there, so user will registered. User will registered. The user form will contains usually earlier first name. User form earlier contains the first name and then last name, right? First name, last name, and then of course email, right? First name, last name, email, and then password, and then mobile. So this is what the earlier form. This is what the earlier form, meaning the form should like this in earlier applications. Here what is happening, first name the user is entering in the form, last name is entering in the form, email is entering, password is entering, and of course confirm password also will be entered, and then mobile number will be entered. So after entering all these things, the user will get a message saying that, user registration successful. User registration successful. Now you can go and then use. Now you can go and then use, or you can log in here. You can log in here. Okay, now you can log in here. User registration is successful. Now you can log in here. Then user will log in there. User will log in there. So far so good, right? Everything is very smooth. So user enter the first name, last name, email, password, mobile, and user successfully logged in, and then user started using the patient started using the application. And one fine day what happened, patient is not receiving any email notifications, like, report ready, right? Like, report ready, or maybe like, your follow-up notifications, report ready, your lab report is ready, or your next follow-up date is so and so, right? Such notifications are not coming to the patient, right? Later in time, patient is not receiving any email notifications like report ready and follow-ups, next follow-ups. These email notifications are not coming to this patient. What's the mistake? The patient entered his email as wrong email ID, right? Wrong email ID. So just because of the patient entering the wrong email ID, the patient is not receiving the notifications, That means what happened now? There is no email sending happened. There is no email registration happened, right? And also mobile number. Patient entered a wrong mobile number, and hence the hospital team also not able to reach the patient to remind him about his next follow-ups because he entered the wrong mobile number, right? So this is the problem, right? Web application, yes, he is using a web application, meaning opened a web browser and he typed medilab.com and he registered there, and then he successfully logged in, but he was not receiving the notifications and he was not receiving the calls at all from the hospital. Why? Because he did some mistake in giving the email and then mobile number. Just imagine the same use case if something like this to be. The same use case if something like this to be. When the user registered, just imagine the same use case if something like to be. When the user registered, send an email with the verification link. Folks, can you please be mute? Right. So when the user registered, send a email with the verification link. Once he click on the verification link, then redirect him to change password page. That means what, the form, let us design the form something like this now. So please observe carefully. So let us design the form something like this now. User first name, last name, email, no password. Username, first name, last name, email, mobile, and let us introduce one more field called user ID. But there is no password, right? There is no password, meaning we are not allowing the user to log into our application until he verify his email ID. So we are sending an email when the user is registered, sending an email with the verification link, and when he click on the verification link, we are verifying that the user is our registered user, and then we are taking him to change his password through the change password page. So to change his password, we are sending an OTP to his mobile number. So we are sending an OTP to his mobile number. So then once he entered the OTP, which is received on his mobile number, then only he will be able to change his password and successfully will be able to log into the application. So now what happened, as email is verified and OTP is verified, meaning mobile number is verified, right? Now the patient will definitely receive the day-to-day notifications, and even the hospital team can also reach him over the mobile because his mobile number is now verified. So what do you understand from this simple story? So you understand from the simple story is enterprise web application is a web application with the enterprise capabilities like, notification service, mail service, message service, connection poolings, right? Meaning more advanced features. It is a web application only, but with the more advanced features. Is nothing but an enterprise web application, meaning in our day-to-day life, to strengthen the data quality, to strengthen the users experience, to strengthen the quality of the application, certain measurements were taken up over the web application, like mail services, messaging services, and technically speaking, database connection pooling services, a lot of other services were security services, right? Here what happened, now security is also there, right? Two-factor authentication, you can say, mobile number, OTP is sending when the user is logged in. We also send one OTP to the user. So once his user entered the OTP along with the password, then only he will be able to log in, meaning security is there. So security, transactions, right? That means what is enterprise applications? So enterprise web application is also a simple web application, with the enterprise standards, and enterprise needs to strengthen the user experience, and security. User experience, data quality, quality, application quality, and security. So data integrity, data security, and user experience, all these things we will get in the enterprise web application. For example, enterprise web application is also a simple web application with the enterprise standards and needs to strengthen the user experience, app quality, and security, right? Just by sending, a simple mail, just by adding a simple mail service and a simple messaging service, right? Simple messaging service, and by adding the simple security services, right? And by adding the simple transaction services, right? So simple transaction services, and we can add a simple better connection management, right? So performance, we can say performance of the performance services, performance improvement performance improvement uh, uh, techniques, right? If all the things we will apply to make an application's user experience, quality, and then security is more than a simple web application, then that is said to be a enterprise web application. So I believe you might understood, right? What is the use case one? The meaning in the use case, what is the first case? We are just taking the password and entering him into the application, and we are asking him to use the application. Yes, he started using the application, but have seen some problems without the messaging services, without the mail services, without the security standards. We have seen some problems, right? Then what we analyzed there is a problem, so we introduced the mail service, and then messaging services, and then security services, transaction services, lot of we introduced. Then that we called it as a enterprise application. So enterprise application now will have the enterprise standards, right? Enterprise standards. So like by email services introduction, messaging services, security services, transaction, performance. Nowadays, any application you can take. So every application at least following these standards, right? Mail services, messaging services, security, transactions, and all these services are supporting by the nowadays applications. So we can say nowadays applications are also called as enterprise web applications. So Spring is a framework. Spring is a framework, is a most powerful, flexible, and easy to use framework to build the enterprise web applications. So we already say Spring is a framework. That means what? Spring have a readily available tools. For example, to send an email, Spring have the email support. To send an OTP, Spring have the support, actually OTP support. To implement the security, Spring have the security support. Implement the transaction, Spring have the transaction support. So all these supports were already given because Spring is a framework. That means half cooked food it is. It is already half cooked. Thus the next half cooked is what we have to cook according to our requirement. Readily available, like your Maggi noodles, right? You just have to do something else to make it to be eatable within just 2 minutes. That means already available. You don't need to do ingredients collection. You don't need to do like what it is, maybe ingredients collection, or maybe you don't need to make that noodle is already there. What you need to do, you just need to bake. Probably you need to just make it to be eatable. That is what meaning, already there. You just need to make it to be eatable within a less time or within no time. So that is what the framework is. So such Spring is also such a framework. All the enterprise web application related tool support was already there in the Spring. So that is said to be a Spring is a framework. And Spring is most powerful and flexible and easy to use. How it will be going forward, we will see. I hope so far it is clear for you, right? Any questions, folks, so far? Is it clear for so far, or any questions? So out of this discussion from our agenda, did you understand what is Spring framework, what is framework, and what is enterprise application? So is it clear, folks? Any questions so far? You can chat with me. If it is clear, that's okay. Now let us go to the next concept, meaning we say Spring is easy to use, right? We said Spring is easy to use and most powerful. So it's not becoming easy to use or most powerful framework in a single day. Spring is not become a most powerful, easily usable framework in a single day. So Spring started, it's a journey. Spring started, right? Spring introduced in the year 2002 by Rod Johnson. So Spring introduced in the year 2002. Let us go and see the wiki on the Spring. So Spring wiki, if you can see, Wikipedia. So let's scroll down. Spring framework. Let us see. So Spring framework, Wikipedia. Let us go here. Yes, you can see Spring framework is an application framework. Of course, version control, EJB, this is as a community edition. All these things we'll discuss, but if you can scroll down, so what is its history? So in 2009, the 0.9 version is released. Sorry, in 2003, 0.9 version released. In 2004, the 1.0 first production releases happened, but they have started their development in 2002. This is Rod Johnson. The first version of the Spring was written by the Rod Johnson, and who released the framework with the publication of his book Expert 1-on-1 J2W Design and Development in October 2022. Sorry, in October 2002. In October 2002, Rod Johnson released a book 1-on-1 J2W Design and Development, the book name. And in that book, he released about the he written the document about the first version of the Spring framework. So the first version of the Spring framework was released under the Apache 2.0 license in June 2003. The first version is released, right? The first production release 1.0 production release. So this June 2003 is the just a first, he released it, but for the production usage, the application started using, right, in the 2004 March 24, the production release is released, right? So this is the journey where the Spring has been started way back in 2002, not nowadays, right? So not nowadays, way back in 2002 it has been started, right? So Spring introduced in the year 2002 by Rod Johnson, and Spring has been evolved. Spring has been evolved, right? Spring has been evolved by making a lot of changes, to itself, right? According to the by making a lot of changes to itself according to the market trends, and the developer needs. So what the developer required according to the developer needs and according to the market trends, right? The Spring is changing itself a lot and then become now a powerful framework. Because it was that much of stretch itself to change itself, to compete with the market, and to fulfill the developer requirements, developer needs. It always changed itself since the year 2002, and now in the year 2022, it is the leader in the world. It is now the leader in the world. Spring is the most popular used framework in the world nowadays. It really beaten all its competitors. So when the Spring introduced in the year 2002, right? So by that time, there is a technology called EJB. There is a technology called EJB, Enterprise Java Beans. So by the time Spring introduced, introduced in 2002, there is already a technology called Enterprise Java Bean in the market, since 2000, I believe, since 2000, meaning already market is using the EJB, Enterprise Java B, in the year 2000, but Spring is started in the year 2002, and now in the year 2022 there is no EJB, meaning in 2022 there is no application. There were no applications which are using the EJB, but there were 90% of the applications, meaning Java applications using Spring. Did you observe the difference? How Spring beaten, how Spring, take over the EJB, how the Spring becomes an alternate to the EJB. So Spring is introduced as an alternative to the EJB with the motto as an alternative to the EJB, right? EJB at the time of Spring introduction, EJB was already there, and market is applications in the market. Applications are already using, are developing using the EJB. But with the motto of overtaking the EJB, Spring is introduced. Spring is introduced as an alternative to EJB. Why? Because why the guys started why the Rod Johnson thought of writing the Spring framework as an alternative to EJB. EJB is very complex. Enterprise Java bin is very complex. Just to write a simple code, assume you have written a simple code, and to deploy it, it will take minimum 5 minutes. A simple code deployment will take 5 minutes. For example, I done some typo, right? While doing the coding, I might have done mistake, or maybe the lines of code what I have written needs to be changed. Then again, for a simple build and then deployment, it is taking 5 minutes. Assume in your day-to-day life, if you done 10 mistakes, 10 into 5 in the sense 50 minutes, meaning 1 hour. 1 hour literally is going for only just deploying the application in the servers, right? So that is only a simple application. If it is a complex application, then we can go down and then we can take 1 T till its completion of its deployment. That much of time it has been taken. 30 minutes, 28 minutes, right? 28 minutes, 30 minutes, 25 minutes, minimum 15 minutes. That much of time it was taken to just to deploy the application in a server. Assume we have a server. In the server, just to deploy, right? Just to deploy the application. For example, let me open raw.io. I believe you understood what the words I'm saying, but just to showcase it some pictorial, I'm just going with this one. So just bear with me. I'm just going with this one. So test one. Just let's create. So just bear with me. So what I would like to say is, right. So being a developer, we have written the code, right? So here is our application. Our application is having a simple login functionality, not more than 5 classes, Simple functionality we have, and to deploy this simple functionality in the server. Let's say this is the server, right? Assume it is a server, right? So just to deploy this application within the server, right? So here is the developer, right? So here is the developer. So he is the developer. So this guy done the coding, right? He done the coding, and he would just like to see his changes, and he thought to deploy it into the server. So just to deploy it to server, a simple just 5 to 6 lines of 5 to 6 files just to deploy it has been taken 5 minutes minimum. Assume if your application having the hundreds and hundreds of files, then to deploy this application into the the EJB servers, it has been taken 30 minutes minimum. So imagine 30 minutes it is taking for only the deployment. Then assume you have written, there were hundreds of files were there. You are working on login, right? Everything you did correctly, you deployed, and to deploy it has been taken 30 minutes. After deployment, you opened it in the browser, you verified, and you have seen there is one typo. What is the typo? Enter first name. In the enter first name, you have not, so there is a typo. So what is the typo is, assume your field should be enter first name, or else you forgot to add some null pointer exception checking or some null checking, right? So enter first name, the first name, user is entering the first name, for example jog, something like that, but in the background you forgot to add some validation or add some null check. You forgot to add some null check. Due to that, if anyone is not giving their first name, it is throwing a null pointer exception. Assume this is a simple mistake you did. Now what you have to do, you have to go back to your code again. You have to do that simple null check, right? So how you will do that simple null check? Just you will add this line, just this line you will add. What is that just line? If name not equal to null, right? So just you will add this simple line, one line you will add. Just for this one line change, again what you need to do, again your deployment will take again 30 more minutes, just to simple line change, right? Again to make it deploy, it is taking again 30 minutes. Assume how the developer productivity is killing just in spending a lot of time in the deployment itself. So this is the problem with the EJBs, and that's the reason Rod Johnson was thought, we need to simplify. We need to simplify. Rather, a developer focus on these deployments, configurations. Let the developer focus on the writing the code more. Let the developer focus on writing the code more rather than worrying about its deployment, right? So that's the reason Rod Johnson thought of starting a framework which is an alternative to EJB. And as he thought, he was written the Spring framework in such a way, we can test the Spring framework from a without event server also. Using simple main method, we can test the Spring application, right? Assume just to write something, just to test this one line, just to write this one line and then to make it effect in the application, we are spending 30 minutes in the deployment. Assume you just write it and then immediately you test it in a next minute, 1 minute you test it. Then what will happen? How much your productivity will be saved? That is where the Spring framework is. So Spring framework is implemented as an alternative to EJB to simplify the application development, to simplify the application development, to simplify the application testing, to simplify the application testing, to simplify the application development. Spring has been introduced by the Rod Johnson in the year 2002 as an alternative to the EJB. And nowadays, in the year of 2022, hardly there is no 5% of the applications are using 5G EJB. Everyone is nowadays using the 90% of the applications are nowadays using the Spring only. See, what is the vision of this guy Rod Johnson? The vision of the Rod Johnson has been changed, meaning a simple vision, right? His vision, his thought changed entire development world to quickly, rapidly develop the applications, right? Easily develop the application, easily test the applications without no time. Now on top of the Spring Boot is introduced. On top of the Spring Boot is introduced. So Spring Boot is introduced with the auto features, at least in the Spring framework, to do a database connection, you need to write some database logic. To do a database connection, you need to write some database logic. And at least to use some mail services, you need to write some mail services code in Spring framework. To use a Spring security, of course, 50% of the cooking is done, right? Remaining 50% we have to do. But in the Spring Boot is introduced with the auto features, meaning on top of the Spring framework, Spring Boot is introduced with the auto features. So we no need to, earlier 50% is giving by the Spring framework and 50% we have to do, right? Now by the introduction of the Spring Boot, 80% is given by the Spring Boot itself. Then we just need to work, we need to focus 20%. Meaning what, you know? The deployment, configurations, deployment, setup, everything has been taken off from the developer, and the developer happily only focus on a development activities, rather focus on this deployment activities, building war file, deploying the application to the war file, waiting for 30 minutes. Rather doing that, Spring removed that first, and then Spring made the application to be developed very easy, and Spring made the application to be tested very easy. Without the server also we can test the Spring applications, right? And even Spring Boot is introduced on top of the Spring with the auto features concept, meaning whatever you want, you just tell to Spring Boot, that will gives to you. You no need to do even a single line of code. Sometimes, for example, you need a database. You tell to Spring Boot, hey, I want a database. You tell to Spring Boot will give you a in-memory database. Readily available in-memory database will be given by the Spring Boot. You tell Spring Boot, I need a database, then Spring Boot will give you the database. You no need to install the database. You no need to, set up the database. You no need to write the connection strings. You don't need to do anything. Everything is given by the Spring Boot itself. That means auto features. You just ask the Spring Boot whatever you want. The Spring Boot will gives you. If you additionally, if you need anything, you just need to customize. That's the reason 80% of the job is doing by the Spring Boot. Just 20% developer need to do, right? So that means lot of customization, lot of development activities, lot of configuration activities, lot of dependencies management, configuration management has been removed from the developer, and then the Spring Boot is taking care of it. Developer just to focus on writing the business logic. That's it. Business logic in the sense what? I would like to do a business logic implementation, like when the user is registered, I need to send an email. So when the user registered, I need to send an email. So developer just need to write the code, right? If the user in the database, let's say if the user in the database is not equal to null, and if the DB user's ID, if the DB user's ID is greater than 0, then you can ask the Spring Boot to again email template dot send an email. So you can pass the information whatever the required to send an email. That's it. You need to focus on your business logic. And again, sending an email is taken care by the Spring framework. Spring Boot itself, it is taken care by. Just you need to write your business evolutions, business logics, business code. That's it. Rest of the thing is providing by the Spring Boot or Spring framework for you, right? And once after this is done, you just test it. In order to test it, you required a server. With a simple method, we can test it, right? So that is how the Spring is ruling the world now and become the world #1 framework. Spring Boot is now, Spring is now world #1 framework. In that now, Spring Boot is the most famous or most commonly using the framework, right? However, we again need to discuss a bit about this EJB here. So by the time the Spring introduced in the year 2002, there is a technology called EJB, right? Enterprise Java Bean, right? It is already there in the year 2000, and then Enterprise Java Bean setup and all is become tough, right? And then the Spring introduced with a motto to simplify the application development and then application testing. Now, what is this Enterprise Java Bean? Simply, we will see what is the Enterprise Edition. So in Java, we have three. In Java, we have 3 editions. 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 One is, in Java, we have 3 editions. One is standard edition. One is standard edition. And in Java, we have 3 editions. One is standard edition. Second one is enterprise edition. And third one is the mobile edition. So in Java, we have 3 editions: enterprise edition, standard edition, enterprise edition, and mobile edition. So in standard edition, CoreJava with the classes, right? Interfaces with the CoreJava with the classes, interfaces, and with the Jdbc, the standard edition has been given. The standard edition. That's the reason we called it as a Java SE. Java SE. So Java SE meaning what? CoreJava plus Jdbc. CoreJava plus Jdbc, and other Java utilities are also there in the Java standard edition. This is not suitable for writing the web applications. So for developing the web applications, sorry folks, you might see a little disturbance, right? Okay. However, let us discuss these Java editions part tomorrow. Let us stop for today. Anything else for me, folks? Do you have any questions? So you can ask your question, because you can unmute yourself and then ask your questions if you have any. And tomorrow, let us discuss it. Today we discussed about what is Spring Framework, right? What is framework we discussed? What is Spring Framework we discussed? And tomorrow, let us discuss what is the Enterprise Edition and difference between the technology, tool, and then framework. Okay. And slowly we will go and then start our Spring Core once after we discussed all these basic things. Okay. So Standard Edition, Enterprise Edition, Mobile Edition, we'll discuss tomorrow. And then we will see how Enterprise Edition has been how it has been introduced in 1999 and how it is now in the 2021, right? Enterprise Edition, how the Spring take over how the Spring becomes the most usable framework by the year 2022. All these things let us discuss tomorrow. Okay. Anything else for me?
Sir, is that a mobile edition or micro edition?
So Spring Mobile Edition, I believe. Let us check. Sorry, Java, right? You mean to say Java ME, Java Mobile Edition, Java Mobile Edition. See, sorry, it is Java Micro Edition, but it is for the mobile application basically. So okay. It is the Micro Edition, but for the mobile application. Sorry, it is a Micro Edition, but for the mobile application usage. So mobile application uses embedded devices for the mobile applications purpose. The Micro Edition has been introduced. Yes, it is the Micro Edition for the embedded concepts, mobile applications, devices basically. Okay. So anything else for me, folks?
Sir, most of the people also using Django, right?
That is Python. Django is a Python framework. Spring is a Java framework. Django is a Python framework, Python editor framework.
Okay. Among these two, which is more used in the enterprises?
Spring is used in the enterprise. Spring is used in the enterprise. So tomorrow we will see one more survey. So there is a Jdbc survey. So Jdbc Spring Boot Report 2021. If you can see this, Jdbc. So this survey, they have done the survey and they have used what is the most world famous or most used technologies and then framework. See, this is the survey they have given. So as per this survey, Spring Boot is using by the 20, let us see this, yes. Java 8 is using by the 69%, JavaScript 40%, Groovy, Kotlin, Scala, others. So, and again, server-wise usage, again, framework-wise usage, right? So all this survey report, again, we will see tomorrow. But for a quick answer, for developing the enterprise applications, Spring is the first choice for anyone. For developing the enterprise application, Spring is the first choice for anyone. See this Spring Boot alternatives, Quarkus, Micronaut, Node.js, Django. Though we have all these things, but Spring is the top one for implementing the enterprise applications. So let us discuss more about these versions, comparisons, and all in maybe coming up sessions. Okay, right. Any questions for me, folks? Okay, so one thing is what probably the link might gonna change, maybe from the Monday onwards. So whoever are interested, if you feel worthy, go and then complete your registrations, because from Monday onwards, I will hand over the notes and all the things, right? Git repository notes and all I will hand over from Monday onwards. Okay, as we already have started our classes, right? Session 1 today and session 2, like that we will go, and then we will start Spring Core as well, coming up sessions. Yes.
Do we have classes tomorrow?
Yes. Tomorrow is Saturday, right? Yes. Let us have the class tomorrow. Yeah.
Sir,
Okay.
will we have a Spring? Will we have a practical approach in Spring also, like small application using Spring?
Not small application. See, we will develop an application like this. So that's what I explained in the demo 1, demo 2, and then demo 3. Not small application. See this? This is the application we will develop. The same application we will develop.
Using Spring, sir, you mean?
Not using Spring actually. Using the Spring Boot, we will develop it. But what we will do, using Spring, we will develop a simple application, and we will develop the Spring Boot application, and we will see the difference, like how the Spring Boot saved us. Spring Boot saved us a lot of time over the Spring event. So we will develop a simple Spring application, and then we will develop the same application, the Spring Boot, and then let us compare both of them.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, folks. Thank you so much. Thanks for attending the session. Do complete your registrations very quickly. Let us, Monday onwards, let us go little go with the more concepts. More and more concepts will come on. So complete your registrations if you feel it as worthy. Thank you so much, folks. If nothing is there for me, course content you can find out in DURGASOFT website today. Yes, if possible to get hard copy. Do we have? Okay, hard copy of the materials. Yes, that's what I'm telling. I already have created a classroom. So you guys just have to go to that classroom. So I already have created a classroom. What you folks need to do, once after your registrations will be completed, I will be add you to the classroom. So once you add it to this classroom, then you will be able to download the material. So here is the material. So Spring Boot 2.x material here is. You will be able to see this. You will be able to download it as well. Okay. So hard copy of the material, you can get it. After downloading, you can take the print and then you can make it as a hard copy. Yeah. Okay, folks. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So actually, from next week onward, what will be the timing of class? Means it is the same 7 a.m. or
yes. Once your registrations will start. Now we are starting at around 7:10, right?
Yeah.
So once your registrations will be completed, then we will start sharp at 7 a.m. and then we will end it by the 8:30.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, folks. Video recording will be provided on daily basis. Yes, video recording will be valid for 6 months. Yes, Mahesh, you said admin class. Yes, I will add all of you folks, Mahesh, on Monday. Once I got the sheet, confirmation candidate sheet, once I got on Monday, I will add you folks. Or otherwise, I will take tomorrow all the confirmation candidates list, maybe tomorrow or Sunday. Then I will add you to the classroom. Yes, Spring Core is good enough to start Spring Boot. Yes, 100% Spring Core is good enough to start Spring Boot. Okay. Okay, folks, I think most of the questions you might come in your mind. I definitely can give you the questions and answers session. Maybe tomorrow we'll spend a little more time, and see you tomorrow, folks, at the same time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Good day, folks.